Hello, my name is Mike Bundy. I'm the Executive Officer for Budget Finance for Moore County Schools. What I'd like to present today is a presentation that was presented to our school board on January 22nd of 2019. And looking at factors that frame the budget development, the budget priorities for the 2019-2020 school year. And so to begin, we'll look at some budget items related to our district, our local projected local supplement cost. Then we'll look at charter school expense, and then something we call a temporary bridge related to revenue and expenses, and we'll discuss that when we get to that point in the slide. The first is our salary scale. Our salary step increase for certified staff is a fixed cost. It's $270,000. The board adopted a salary scale last year, and this is just the process to advance employees on that scale. So that is a fixed cost related to our budget for 2019-2020. Let's look at charter schools. Charter schools receive local revenue from the district in which the students enrolled or the student resides. In other words, all the students that live in Moore County that attend charters where the district is required to pay the charter schools based on that expense. It's by general statute, a per pupil local current expense appropriation for the students that attend charters that reside in Moore County. What you'll notice is that when you look at the budget, the charter schools continue to grow, and the budget continues to increase related to payment to charter schools. This year, the amount of budget is around $1.8 million. You'll see that trend continues to rise. And given next year, just an estimated amount would be around 1.9, almost $2 million next year. That would be a payment that would be paid to the charter schools for their student enrollment. This slide is just another example of that. It shows the expenditure continuing to increase per pupil cost, and then you'll see the estimate. The current estimate in 1920 is $1.8 million, and then you'll see that the estimate for 1920 is $1.9 million for a payment to our charter schools. When you look at our charter schools, if you look at the data and do some analysis work, what you'll realize is that a large percentage of students that attend charters never attended Moore County schools. So when you look, we did some looking in. We looked at the results and data in December of this year, and what we found was that of 851 charter school students that reside in Moore County, 470 of those students never attended Moore County schools. So that's around 50 to 55% of those students never attended Moore County schools. If you do a per pupil expense related to that, you get around $1 million of cost that is being paid to charter schools for students that never attended Moore County schools. And then you'll have a comparison of the year before was around 395 students that out of 679. So again, the majority percentage of students are non-Moore County school students. Let's talk about the funding. The funding, real simplistic example, just take one student. First example, student, I'll call him Johnny. Johnny attends Moore County schools. The county is sending funding to the district, and that is used to benefit all the students of Moore County that attend Moore County schools. And there's no money that's paid to the charter because that student is a Moore County student in Moore County schools. Next person, Nicole. Nicole is attended Moore County schools at some point, then transfers to the charters. So the money would in essence come through Moore County Schools and be paid out to the charter for the student. The last example is Tyrone. Tyrone is a student that never attends Moore County Schools, and soon as is enrolled in the charter from day one. So never attended Moore County Schools. So that payment is a check that we write out to the charter. So it doesn't benefit any of our students, any of our staff or teachers. There's no benefit, and it's paid out to the charters. Just an example of a simple example of how the flow of funding happens with our charter school impact. The next slide talks about bridge funding. Bridge funding is a kind of a temporary bridge that we identified in last year's budget, where we can use some what we call local grants. It's in our Fund 8. Local grants can be supportive of some of the personnel cost for our district. In essence, we would transfer 5 nurses from local funds to Medicaid, and also we would transfer a school resource officer to impact aid funding, and then also transfer 2 psychologists, social workers, or counselors to Medicaid funding. So this is a bridge to provide funding, and so we don't have to reduce those positions, cut those positions, is a way to maintain those positions in our district that meets the needs of our students with at least some limited funding for a limited amount of time. So if you look at the funding for these 2 items related to impact aid and Medicaid, over the history of the fund, impact aid has a current cumulative balance of $662,000, and federal Medicaid has a cumulative balance currently of $1.7 million. You'll notice that in each example, the funding it varies. There's no real stream. It's some years are more than others. So it just depends on the funding, the availability of funding when the funding is received by the district, as to how those funds are implemented and used. We don't always know when the funding will be sent. It just it's a process that's determined by the federal government, so we don't always know the timing. But this just gives you an example of the cumulative balances. If we look at impact aid revenue first, impact aid revenue has shown an increase due to hard work in our district, due to our students and our schools completing required information, required forms. The forms provide a basis for funding in our district, and we've seen about a 30% increase in funding because of the efforts of our district, our schools, our students, our principals, our central office staff. So the funding has generated currently about $300,000 in the current year, and we expect that to continue. And so you'll see there are items that are identified as part of the cost and expense of the program. However, you'll notice that we are in the process of identifying needs to support military families moving forward. The goal here is not to build a large balance, but to use those funds to benefit our military families, benefit our military students, and support our military population in Moore County schools. Medicaid revenue, that is the other item related to the bridge funding. Currently, we get about $500,000 in Medicaid. A lot of that is used to support EC, exceptional children, contract services, and other costs. We also use that to support our nurses. We have 9 nurses that are paid out of this fund. Also, some other personnel costs for a counselor and a psychologist. So what you'll notice is that this fund has revenue of about $500,000, but has expenses of over $1 million. So what that tells you is that this funding is available for the district, but only for a short time. That's why we call it a bridge, a temporary bridge. You'll see that given the current model, the funding will last about 2 years. When you get to the third year, the year of 2021, you'll notice that the fund becomes negative, meaning that there is no remaining funding to be used to cover the cost. So in essence, what the district will do is that the district will develop a process, a systematic process to move positions back to local funding as in a multi-year process. So eventually the funding will be there to sustain the EC cost and maybe a smaller amount of positions. However, it will be a funding stream in the future that will provide some benefit to our EC students. That concludes my presentation, and thank you.